Okay, we are live. Okay,
Hey.
welcome to the Retrain Your Brain Effect with your host, just Mo speaking. And I have a very, 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 very special guest on the show here with us today, Leshel.
Woo! Hey, hey. How's it going?
I am so glad that you decided to join me on this show, particularly, which the title of it is "Faith Over Failure." That's the theme of this show. Um,
Mm-hmm.
your story. Well, before I even knew your whole story, just watching you on social media with your current situation. I don't want to say, well,
Oh no, go ahead.
was your current. I don't want to confuse the listeners. I don't want to drop them in on the middle of the story because that's where I didn't realize it was the middle of the story. But anyways, I was cheering you on in your situation that you were going through at the time, and I was just so taken by your tenacity, your joy, your demeanor with everything that was going on that, once I decided to do the show, I had to reach out to you.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I
Mm-hmm.
reach out to you and I find out, girl, that wasn't even half of the story.
You have no idea.
That wasn't even half the story. And I mean, I love God, okay? What's that Mary Mary song? I love God.
Yes.
But listening to your story, I just was like, it is only appropriate to name this episode Faith Over Failure. And listeners, you're going to see why in a little bit. So before we jump into the story, Leshel, can you give the listeners a little bit of a background of like who you are, where you come from?
All right. So my name is Leshel. I'm almost 40 in like about 6 months.
You are
Yay.
not.
Yeah, I will be. I'm looking forward to it too.
I guess so. Looking like that, I would be looking forward to it. Listeners, if you're listening on the podcast, you're gonna want to go over to YouTube and come see this woman here talking about she's almost 40 years old. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a single parent. I have two boys, 20, which my 20-year-old, he's has a form of autism, which is another journey. And my younger son, who's 16, he has ADHD. So I have two different things going on. I have one that's totally up here and one that's, a little bit lower down here with their personalities and everything.
Right.
But I come from a Christian home. My mom was a single parent as well. She had me pretty young, as I kind of followed in the same footsteps as my mom. But we grew up in the Word all the time. We knew about Jesus. We knew what He did for us and everything. But going through life, growing up as a child, a Christian girl, it's difficult sometimes because you're trying to fit in to everyone else that doesn't live the way you live. So it
Listen,
kind of
let's
gets a little
talk about
difficult.
it. Let's talk about it. That's yes.
Yes,
Yes,
yes. We
let's
got
talk
the
about it. We're
got the little
similar.
term church girl. That's who I was, the
Yes.
church girl.
Yes,
The
yes.
actually the church uh white girl because of the way I spoke. So that was a whole nother thing.
Mhm.
I have a family that's, some educators are in my family. So, we was also raised to, speak a certain way, trying to learn proper English, things like that. Now, I
Mhm.
know as I've gotten older, I kind of, moved away from that little extra little slang here and there.
Well, you
But
you've added your own flavor.
yep, my own little flavor. But yeah, so I had a interesting childhood, and it was a great childhood, even with just having my mom there and my family, because a lot of my family helped raise most of us.
Mhm.
How they say it takes a village to raise a child, and that's exactly what I had. So that helped me out so much. It was predominantly women. We didn't have many men in our family
Okay.
that were available. So it was a lot of it was like one sided as far as the woman's side.
Okay.
And of course, growing up, you start to learn the male side, but not, I guess, the way you were expecting to
Right.
learn
Well, you're
it.
like, well, Auntie so and so never said this, and Mom never
Yeah,
said that. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely been interesting, especially having boys. You got to learn how to teach them as how to be men, but not being a man, which is you can't do it. It's hard. So
Right.
it's that was definitely a challenge.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're coming to that. Where are you from?
Oh, duh, I forgot about that.
No, it's
I'm from
okay.
I'm from New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay.
Born and raised, but
Is that
currently I live in
gun?
South Carolina.
What's New Haven? What's New Haven's little nickname? Gun? Is it gun
gun
waving?
wave, gun wave in New Haven. And let me tell you, it was. I was always a little nervous, especially we've had people back at our church years ago that we lost to gun violence, so that it was always
Mm.
so difficult to deal with things like
Yeah,
that.
New Haven is known, unfortunately, for its violence. It is a violent city. I remember I didn't grow up in the city. I did live in Connecticut for most of my childhood, and
Hmm.
we lived out in the woods, and literally out in the woods. But we came to church out there in New Haven, so that's how I know Leshel from childhood, going to church. And
Yeah.
when I went to college, I chose to go to a college out there in New Haven. And I remember that during student orientation, they told us that we had to be careful of what colors we wore to like the local stores or McDonald's and things. Like a college kid,
Yeah.
you throw on whatever to go down the street. And they
Right.
made a
Hmm.
point to stop and tell us, like, you cannot wear this color, this, because of the violence and the gang activity in that area.
Right.
So this
Yeah.
is where you're from. This is where you grew up.
Yes.
But
Yes.
your
Born and
childhood, you
raised.
said, was good. You had a good
Yeah.
childhood, safe
Yeah.
and okay.
Yes. Yes. Overall, it was pretty safe. So.
So where did we make the wrong turn, Michelle? Where does the, because remember, though, we covered the faith part, church girl and
Hmm.
everything, but the rest of
Yeah.
this title is called failure. So how did we get
Oh, there's a
onto
bunch of
this?
those.
How did we get onto this path? This
I and I've always tried to figure out where did it start, and I know there's been things that I guess as a kid I like yearned for and I
mm,
wanted to experience. Especially, I love my mom and she was the best mom and she still is. But sometimes we, as a girl, we still want that male connection with their
yeah.
fathers or someone that can even replace the father when their father's not there. And growing up you start to look for that in other people, but you start to
Mm,
choose the wrong type of people that you're
mm,
trying to search for that in.
yes.
And on top of that, wanted to be loved by a man, because of course you have so much love by a bunch of women, but you're looking for that love from
Yeah.
a man. And it started there, looking for love in a man, which got me all mixed up
Okay.
from time of high school up until even like maybe within like the last year that
Wow.
has
Yeah.
been difficult. And
Mm,
finally I came to the realization, okay, I really need to change my thinking, because I'm doing the same patterns over and over again, and nothing's changing. So
yeah.
it
So
definitely started as a kid.
so it started,
Hmm.
okay, so it sounds like it started with a man. What happened in that first relationship that kind of just kind of introduced you is a nice way of saying into a rapid decline. I'm trying to put this as nicely as possible. But what
Yes.
was that first experience that kind of just opened the door to hell?
you know, uh, like it was my first boyfriend that I was not
Oh, the
supposed to
voice
have.
changed. That voice changed and everything. Okay.
Yes. And the thing is, my mom, she wanted to protect us. Because I have a younger sister. She wanted to protect us so much because she went through things as a kid, and as teenagers, we think we know more than our parents, and so
Yes.
we wanted to find out for ourselves.
Yes.
And she had told me, there's no dating. First of all, I was 15. There should have been no dating, but I wanted to experience some type of love. And I started dating too early, and I wasn't prepared for what came along with dating.
Mm.
And, growing up, there was always that waiting for marriage thing. And I was so adamant about, following the Bible as far as that, wait until you're married. There's a timeline that everything's supposed to take place.
Right.
But getting involved with, a boy, and you start to change how you think because you feel a little bit um, almost encouraged to do something totally opposite than what you learned to do.
Mm.
And because you kind of weighing out, okay, what do I want more? Do I want to do what is right, or do I still want to try to get this love that I've been waiting for, thinking that's love, but it really wasn't. So
Okay.
it started there, thinking that I had found love, but it really wasn't. It
And
was fake.
didn't you and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you meet him at church?
Not this one, no.
No.
This
Okay.
not this one, because there's a whole bunch of failures, like I said.
Oh boy.
but this was but
You're
this
not
person
alone.
was the begin yeah, this
You're
person
not
was the
alone.
beginning of it all.
Okay.
And then I did end up meeting someone at church, and we was going through the whole, learning to do things the right way, where my mom allowed us to date,
Okay.
meeting the parents, you know, keeping things very appropriate. And me and my mindset, because previously I had dated somebody that wasn't a Christian. So that was one of my mom's biggest thing, was being unequally yoked.
Yeah.
So she told me about that all the time. So now I said, okay, this is different. Maybe this might end different, not end, but this might be
Right.
something kind of
Now,
different.
someone that is not of Christian faith and they hear you say unequally yoked, how would you explain that? What does that
Let's
mean
see. Well, to
exactly?
me, that means, well, first, someone that doesn't really share your same beliefs, because it's kind of hard to walk with someone that doesn't understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be some type of button head somewhere. I believe in Jesus. You don't. I'm talking about Jesus. You're not. And there's going to be like a riffraff right there. It's just going to
Right.
be. It's
Yeah.
going to be. I'm over here. You're down here, or whatever. We're just not on the same level, wavelength.
Yeah. On the
Yeah.
same page as far as beliefs.
Right.
So we are going to take a quick break. When we
Mm-hmm.
come back from the break, let's dive deep in. I think we've given everybody enough whipped cream and
Yeah.
fluff and marshmallows and all that stuff. When we come back, we're going to dive in because your story is such a strong story. Like, I've been interviewing several people for the upcoming episodes, and everyone's story is so unique and so powerful in its own way. But I
Mm-hmm.
keep coming back to your story and my thoughts because I'm in disbelief of how you can continue to stay so strong through everything that was going on in your life. And it just seemed like you were getting hit with one thing after the other after the other. So when we come back from the
Yeah.
break, we're going in. Okay. All
Gotcha.
right, listeners, hang in for one moment after this break. Okay, everybody, welcome back. So, Leshel, before the break, you were giving us like a backstory and a setup as far as what was going on in your life, your mindset at the time, growing
Mm-hmm.
up in a faith believing household in Christianity, going to church, church girl. Now, something along the way happened where there was some kind of disconnect. And I want us
Mm-hmm.
to now go ahead, let's start digging deep into this story.
Yeah. So, we it all stems from me wanting love, period. And I started to weigh out what was more important, my faith or trying to find love. And I started to shift to finding love, and then finding in the wrong places, which brought me to getting involved into drugs, brought me getting into other extracurricular activities, um, also getting in trouble with the law. You notice that once you move away from your faith, everything else starts to kind of fall apart. It's like everything was coming one after another after another. from the substance abuse, DCF involvement, not having my children with me all the time. It was, it was like a mess.
Okay, hold on a second. All right, so we are on the L train. We going fast now. Okay, first of all, I would just like to ask you this question. Do you think growing up in the 90s made us like want to be in love with somebody so bad because of all those love songs that was constantly
Yes, yes. And let me R&B. And that
Okay,
was
let me tell you
yeah.
something about some R&B. Growing up in the age of R&B, I mean, when R&B was hot and strong, okay, like we had Boys and Men, Keith Sweat. Who else we had? Brian McKnight. We had who else?
We had Aaliyah, we had
Aaliyah,
TLC, Janet, Michael, who
Carl Thomas. I mean, like
whew,
this was
look at me,
in
I'm
the
getting excited.
right. I'm like, where is my fan? Okay, so we are growing up in the era of love, baby. Okay, so do you think
Mm-hmm.
this was like shaping, the mindset on top of already being a teenager, already going through your hormonal changes and whatnot? But now we're growing
Yes,
up in this era of love and baby
yes.
making and all of that. We're like, I want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Because
I'm grown.
yeah, every time you watch those music videos, when I was allowed to, because I had to sneak and watch them.
Yeah.
But when I watched them, it was like, oh, I want to experience that. Look at him. He's singing his heart out to her.
Yeah,
He's
they're in
like
love.
showing up with flowers and teddy bears. I'm like, I want my teddy bear. Somebody
Yes.
give me a teddy bear.
Yeah. So it kind of
So yeah,
disillusioned us to feel like this is what love was and we needed to seek after
yeah,
this thing.
yeah.
And then the second point I want to bring up on a less lighter note, how do you jump from wanting to fall in love to drugs? When I wanted to fall in love, I was doodling in my notebook. I don't want to sound like a goody two shoes over here,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Let me tell you.
How does that connect? Because I'm a little.
See, now the thing is, because I want to love so bad, the person I was with was someone I was familiar with, and I was so in love with them that once they started introducing some other things, I felt like, okay, I love him, but I don't want him being alone, and I want to do the same thing. Let me try it out. And I found myself changing who I was to fit with like who they were.
Yeah.
And in hopes that, we're going to be together. I can't leave him because I gotta do whatever he does because, so he loved me.
Okay.
And so it started with just the introduction of that. And it just went downhill from there.
What drugs were you guys into?
Crack cocaine.
Oh, dang, girl. I thought you was going to say marijuana. You said crack cocaine. You called it by its full name.
Yes. And so weird when I told people about the drugs I use, they like, wait
right.
a minute, you use that? And it's hard to believe because I was top of my class in high school. I graduated 4th out of my class.
Wow.
I was a quiet student, and then like a few years later, I turned into this type of person. It was like where did that come from?
Well, yeah, and I was going to ask you, how old were you when you were introduced to this?
Was it 2025? I had just turned 25.
Okay, so you're not like a kid. You're old enough to know.
I'm grown. I've had kids. I've had 4 children.
Crack is whack, right? Like Auntie Whitney was. So you're grown enough to know this, but just because you want to chase after.
Yeah. And the thing is, when I learned about crack, and as crazy as it may sound, I didn't really know what it was. Okay. I'm thinking, because at the time, I had tried marijuana a little bit, and I'm thinking, oh, it's like that. Totally different.
No, it's not like that.
Nowhere near like that. And then, when I had got all into the substance abuse with it, I had saw the movie New Jack City for the first time. And I was like, oh, I wish I saw this years ago, because then I knew what I would have been expecting. And I would have been like, what? No, you can leave. You can miss me with that.
Right.
But that movie had showed me a lot of effects of it, but it was too late. I already started to feel the effects of it. And it was the most the craziest time of my life. It was like a long period of time at least 2 years before I was able to put it down. And actually, I just celebrated my 12 years yesterday of being recovered.
Congratulations. Wait,
Yes.
hold on, where's my applause buttons for you?
Woo! Yes.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome. That is
Thank you.
so,
Thank
so good.
you.
12 years.
12 years. And it's
Wow.
hard to believe. And sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday that I had experienced it. And but then at the same time, it's like, wow, a lot of time has gone by because I went through so many other different things since then.
Yeah.
And, I grew, I fell, I grew, I fell throughout all those, all that time since then.
Yeah.
But
So, okay. So this is your first relationship. Um, you're introduced into drugs because you're chasing after this feeling of love and wanting to be accepted. You fall
mm-hmm,
into drug abuse.
yeah.
You, it's safe to say that you and this other person had broken things off, correct? You're no
Yes.
longer together. Okay.
Yep. Oh,
So after he left, you stayed with the drugs.
yes.
So
Yeah.
you
And
had
that's when
become addicted.
yeah, I knew that was a problem when I didn't need him anymore and I started doing it on my own. That's when I realized, oh, I think I got a problem, huge problem.
Mm.
And then after that, I left him while I was in treatment. I ended up dating somebody else, getting married to somebody else that was also in a program, which is a no-no. Usually, when you're first coming off of drugs or whatever your addiction is, you're at least supposed to wait at least a year before you are
Is
even
that
introduced
okay?
into
Is that
another
what
relationship.
that's what they
Yeah.
suggest for you guys? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And I didn't wait the time. I met him right at the beginning of treatment. We dated for 6 months. 6 months when I got out of my program, which was a woman and children program, and I was there with my younger son. We got married the day after I got released. And
Oh.
yeah, that was my first husband. And it was a mistake because he was still actively using his drug of choice, which was alcohol. And I was still doing what I was doing as far as staying clean and sober, but it got to the point where his relapses started to affect me, and then I found myself relapsing, and then it was just a downward spiral from there.
Was it because you saw him using that pushed you to want to use, or was there other stressors happening in the relationship that was pushing you to use again?
It was definitely other stressors. Feeling like wanting my husband to be with me, but not being able to be with me because he was still using,
Mm.
feeling like I was being blamed for him using because, his mom used to be like, she was upset with me because she felt like I was the one causing him to use, which I wasn't. I was still
Right.
trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle and at the same time still try to help him get on the same, like on the right path, but it just wasn't working. And then I felt overwhelmed and, I ended up just giving in and saying, oh, the heck with it. Let me just go do this one thing this one time. And it turned into more than one time. And then I
Right.
felt myself right back into the same habits.
How long were you clean before you relapsed?
I was 2 weeks away from my year.
Oh, that punched me
Yeah.
in the gut, and it's not even me. Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
it was horrible, and I felt so bad. And
Oh,
I'm like, oh
wow.
my God, I was 2 weeks. I was ready to go get my year chip,
Yeah.
and I couldn't even do it. And I was so embarrassed to even go to a meeting because I had
Mm,
relapsed. And I'm like, and I always took pride in myself, like, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to fall. And then
right.
me telling other people, hey, I did it. And still, I still had my husband and all this stuff. And then I fall. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I kind of had to go back with my tail between my legs. And I didn't want to do that.
Man. So, okay, so we've reached the end of part one. The story goes even deeper than this. Like we haven't even scratched the surface, I believe, right, Leshel?
Oh, yeah, you sure haven't.
We have not even scratched the surface. I'm trying to be polite to my listeners and only keep the episodes like about 30 minutes long. But
Good
but
luck.
exactly. I was gonna say, like in cases like this and stories like this, it's like I just want to keep talking and talking and talking with you because I need to like figure out your thought process in your mind. Not so much of like what were you thinking when you weren't doing the right thing, but how does somebody who was doing the wrong thing for so long just one day finally make that solid decision to say, okay, no more. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm trying to get to that, but we can't get to that yet until people really know where you came from so that they can appreciate your victory, your glory right now, you know?
Yes.
So we're going to stop here. We're going to definitely have you back for part two. Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with before we head out?
Well, everybody goes through things. Don't ever feel discouraged because you're going through something. Because believe you me, just take your time because eventually there is a light at the end of that tunnel. It's coming. So just hold
Yes.
on.
That's beautiful. That's such a great reminder. Thank you, Leshel, for joining us today
Thank
on this
you.
broadcast. We are going to have you for part two for sure because we need to continue through this journey with you and
Yes.
figure out when that spatula moment happened for you, that moment where you decided to flip it all around and get back on the right track for your life.
Yes. Yes.
Listeners, thank you for listening in. And I just want everybody to hang on for just a moment coming up next.